Hello, and welcome to Teaching Beyond the Surface, the podcast where we explore what really means to educate for equity and justice in our schools. I am your host, Kylie Farias, and today we're going to be diving into anti-oppressive education. What are hidden lessons in our classroom, and how can we simply move beyond them, teaching the curriculum to truly challenging our systematic oppression? Let's start out with something powerful that Kumasharo said, and that is the main sources we're getting all our stuff from today is Kumasharo's readings. So the process of teaching involves not only what we do, but also what we do not do. What we say, as well as what we do not say, what we include, as well as we do not include, and how we interact as well as we don't react. So, kind of repetitive, but it is a meaningful thing to say. This quote highlights how teaching is never neutral. Even an unintentional message in our classroom is so-called hidden curriculum and can either reinforce or challenge oppression. Picture this: a teacher tells a student that boys and girls are equal, and then consistently calls on boys to answer questions and the challenging ones and have them pick up all the heavy things. What message is being sent? Whether we like it or not, we do not know. Challenge often speaks louder than what we say. So, so that's definitely, I remember when I was younger, and a lot of my teachers would be like, oh, we need, the boys, the strong, tall boys. Obviously, we need that help, but I think girls can help too, and there's just so many ways to go around that. Kumasharo's work also points out that addressing oppression isn't just about adding diverse perspectives to our lesson. Instead, we need to rethink everything about how we teach, from the materials we use to expectations we set at the beginning of the class year. The hidden curriculum doesn't only show up in gender norms. Think about science lessons that unintentionally raise alternative reproductive paths. As Kumasharo experienced with middle school science seminar, some pointed out the flowchart ignored methods of fertilization other than heterosexual intercourse, interactions between the developing organism, the mother's womb, or ambiguous genders. They noted not all humans are clearly male or female, quoted by Kumasharo. Teaching is shaped by the stories we tell, and just as importantly, by the ones we ignore. Another striking point Kumasharo states is teaching involves uncertainty, he writes. He states that, yes, teaching is impossible, but if we believe that teaching is successful when students learn exactly what we said beforehand that they are supposed to learn. So this idea challenges traditional views of success in education. Instead of aiming for perfect delivery and uniform understanding, we embrace the complexity of students interpreting lessons through their unique ideas, what they're kind of creating up in their head. Everyone has a different perspective about things. Teaching through metaphors, for instance, can make concepts relatable, but also oversimplify them. Kumasharo illustrates this when he describes teaching water cycles through skits, personifying water droplets as human behaviors like hugging or running away. While engaged students, it is also risk misinterpreting the science. So as educators, we must balance relatability with complexity of the truth, helping students critically examine not what just they learn, but how to learn it. Let's step back and think about a little bit about teaching as activism. Kumasharo challenges us to ask, what could it mean to define the group of teachers, especially anti-oppressive teachers, as activists? Activism, he explains, can take many forms. Some reinforce privilege, while others disrupt it. This is the most transformative forms of activism. He argues challenge society definitions of what is normal, as Kumasharo says. Being normal requires thinking in only certain ways, feeling only certain things, and doing certain things. It punishes those who do not conform, those who do not look normal, love the right kind of person, or value the important things. Queer activism, for example, doesn't reject conformity. It celebrates difference and shows how embracing the uncomfortable can lead to deeper social justice. Kumasharo asks us to consider what would happen if we explored approaches to social justice that were premised on being uncomfortable. As educators, we resist the temptation to avoid questions instead, and we should lean into it, encouraging our students to question norms and explore alternative perspectives. So now we're going to deep dive into the praxis, the bridge between the theory and practice. practice. How do we take powerful ideas we've discussed and then turn them into actionable strategies in the classroom? We've already seen that teaching is very neutral. As Kumashara explains, the process of teaching involves not only what we do, but also what we not do, just like I said earlier in the beginning of this podcast. Anti-oppressive education asks us to challenge the dominant cultural, racial, and gender narratives that often shape what we teach and how we teach. Kumasharo calls teachers to reject common sense teaching that reinforces power imbalances. He writes, being normal requires thinking in only certain ways, feeling only certain things, and only doing certain things. It punishes those who do not conform. Comprehension of necessary educational tasks requires an awareness of this critique of normalcy. We challenge everything, including our educational programs, methods of instruction, and fundamental presumptions we have taught about good teaching. We can no longer educate as though everything we do is unbiased or objective. One of the starting points to think critically about the hidden curriculum in our classrooms. This is where we examine the messages we send, not only through what we teach, but through what we leave out, and how we interact with our students. For instance, when we frame lessons in ways that can include certain experience, we perpetrate inequality. Take Kumashara's reflection on teaching about human reproduction, where focus was limited to binary understanding of male and female development. So he states, some pointed to the ways that the flowchart ignored methods of fertilization other than homosexual intercourse. Interactions between the organism of the mother's womb and the end of the flowchart organized the process of childbirth. Some pointed to ways that asking students how to show fertilized eggs develops into a male and female ignored ways that humans can develop ambiguous genders. By questioning such assumptions, we open space for the classroom to be more inclusive and challenging and just getting those kids to think. When we create a classroom that questions traditional narratives and celebrates multiple perspectives, we begin to practice anti-oppressive education in its fullest form, which is exactly what we want to do. Now let's look at the concrete ways to implement this theory of anti-oppressive education in your classroom. So one thing is just rethinking your curriculum, reassessing your lesson plans. What perspectives are missing? Are you reinforcing stereotypes about race, gender, or ability? Making a effort to integrate diverse voices and perspectives into this gender. As Kumasharo says once, it is important that students learn that we are using different stories to understand the world and that different stories have political implications. For example, in teaching history, don't focus on traditional Western narratives, include indigenous perspectives, the history of resistance movements, and the experience of marginalized communities. That's one way you could totally add so many things into your curriculum. Embrace the discomfort of uncertainty. Praxis involves willing to embrace discomfort. Kumajaro states that what would happen if we explored approaches to social justice were premised on being uncomfortable? This means creating a classroom environment where students are encouraged to ask difficult questions and challenge norms. It also requires teachers to step out of their comfort zone and be uncomfortable and just talk about the uncomfortable truths with students. And obviously, not a lot of people like to hear that sometimes, but it is so important in our education nowadays. We just need to get more developed. Engage students in critical reflection. Anti-oppressive education requires not just teaching content, but teaching students to think critically about content. Encourage students to reflect on the ways different narratives are understanding of a world. Kumashara writes, activists who reject this imperative to conform often celebrate the ways that they are queer. They tell us being queer is not a bad thing at all. They tell us they are changing the word queer to something empowering and disruptive. How can we disrupt students' understanding of normal? By challenging them to critically examine the definitions and assumptions they encounter every day. Okay, the process of implementing anti-oppressive education is ongoing and requires constant reflection. It's about making space for discomfort, challenging traditional narratives, and engaging with students' lived experience. So, to close off Kumasharo's words, the process of teaching involves not only what we do,